It's the Wilk Report. I'm Michael Wilk, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio, with some interesting news on the Terminator front. Uh, we got a little bit of Edward Furlong back in the news, since he is going to be apparently in Terminator Dark Fate, and a little bit more on Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in the movie. So let's go ahead and get to this. This is from Hollywood Reporter, dated 22nd of July of 2019. And it says, Edward Furlong's Terminator return renews focus on his domestic violence past. And yeah, as you can see, he really does not look good. But of course, he's in a courtroom, giving deposition and not really looking his best. But, the actor has been arrested on numerous occasions on suspicion of both felony and misdemeanor domestic abuse. Of the numerous surprise reveals made on Friday during Paramount's San Diego Comic-Con panel, it was a Terminator Dark Fate casting that floored fans. Dark Fate producer James Cameron revealed Edward Furlong would return to the franchise as John Connor, the role that made him a star at a young age when he was cast in 1991's Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Fans of the highly anticipated installment starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton were thrilled. Those aware of Furlong's checkered domestic violence past were concerned. It's important not to sweep Edward Furlong's reported history of domestic violence under the rug just because he's returning to a beloved movie role, Jackie Marroquin, director of programs at the nonprofit California Partnership to End Domestic Violence, told The Hollywood Reporter. Added Marroquin, there are consequences for survivors who may think twice about seeking help when they see people who harm gaining fame or power without being held accountable by their fans and peers. Skydance Media, which is producing Dark Fate, declined to comment, as did Paramount. Furlong could not be reached for comment. He does not currently have any listed representation. After T2 became a mega hit, grossing $520 million worldwide, Furlong became a star. In his July 1991 Judgment Day review, THR critic Dwayne Berg wrote Edward Furlong's nervy performance as a nervy 12-year-old savior. I think he was actually 13 at the time. 10 years old, actually. Because, the character he played was 10 years old, even though it was kind of a cheat because the Terminator was released in 1984. Took place in May, so even if he's conceived in the middle of May, he wouldn't be born really until January of 1985, and the sequel takes place in 1994, 10 years after. So yeah, it's a little fuzzy. So, but yeah, so you've got Hamilton playing his gutsy mother. Furlong turned into a teen heartthrob and went on to sign with CAA in 1997 and appear in a number of films, including Detroit Rock City, Pet Sematary 2, and most notably 1998's critically acclaimed American History X. But in the early 2000s, the actor's career cooled and he began making different headlines. Furlong was accused of domestic violence by his estranged wife, who got a restraining order against him, and for which he was arrested for violating. Between October 2012 and May 2013, Furlong was arrested multiple times on suspicion of both felony and misdemeanor domestic abuse. The victim, his girlfriend, also got a restraining order against him. In March 2013, Furlong was sentenced to 180 days in jail for violating his probation, which he was on after he violated a restraining order obtained by his estranged wife, and for violating the girlfriend's restraining order. Arrested again May 2013 for assaulting his girlfriend. Through a plea deal, he was given 5 years probation, ordered to rehab for drug addiction, and to undergo 52 weeks of domestic violence counseling. Since then, Furlong has mostly stayed out of the headlines until the surprise announcement made at SDCC about the latest Terminator chapter, which is due in theaters November 1st. Immediately after the unveiling, his prior arrest record was noted by social media users. And so you can go ahead and read more about that in the rest of the article. My own thoughts on this are that, this, from a public standpoint, this doesn't really look good necessarily because, But at the same time, uh, not having read much news about Comic-Con or any of the announcements, I'm aware of the Star Trek Picard trailer dropping down at Comic-Con, and the appearance of badly de-aged Brent Spiner in the trailer, which I talked about in my review of that trailer earlier this week. And if you remember from my video on the Dark Fate leaks earlier this year, the leaks supposedly had Edward Furlong's John Connor murdered as a teenager by Karl the Terminator, who shows up, late and ends up succeeding where other Terminators had failed. So, this is, this seems to confirm what's actually being reported about these leaks so far. I'll keep you updated because, like I said, I don't pretend to have any inside sources at any studios. I'm not that big a channel yet. Who knows? Maybe someday, that might change. But, for now, I don't have any inside sources. All right. I wouldn't even know whom to contact. So this is all speculation on my part. And like I said, I'm not sure I give those rumors any real credence. But, this does seem to confirm that Edward Furlong as John Connor will indeed be in the movie in some capacity. Now, whether it's actually going to be as rumors have said, we'll find out, actually, because that brings me to my next bit in this video, which is Karl the Terminator, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this is on Screen Rant, which I'm told is kind of spotty as far as being accurate, but then, the people claiming it's not accurate all too often are the ones like Kowalski, who, because he didn't like what Screen Rant had to report with regards to STD, went ahead and tracked down the writer of the Screen Rant article to try and browbeat him into retracting his column. And of course, I went ahead and made contact with that same author and, kind of tried to set him straight on the record, because I think he got more right than he realizes. So, but I'm digressing here. So, but let's go ahead and read the headline. Who is Karl? Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator Dark Fate character explained. Dark Fate features a return of Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, a franchise alum, as a new robot named Karl. Karl will be pivotal to the Dark Fate plot as he helps Sarah Connor, the returning Linda Hamilton, Grace, played by Mackenzie Davis, and Danny, played by Natalia Reyes, to escape Skynet's grasp. This will be Schwarzenegger's fifth time playing a T-800 model or similar, sent back from 29 to either destroy or protect Sarah Connor and those she loves. It's no surprise he's returned for this new Terminator installment. The very first film, directed by James Cameron and released in 1984, helped shoot Schwarzenegger to stardom as an action hero. Since then, he's been game to reprise his role as the Terminator, appearing in different iterations across the franchise. Even though the slight tweaks to the parameters of the Terminator's personality have been made over the years, one thing has remained the same. He's a formidable foe and an invaluable ally. In addition to the trailer released back in May, new Dark Fate footage was shown at San Diego Comic-Con, which helped give fans a taste of what to expect. At the center of the new footage was Sarah Connor, but it also provided a better insight into Karl's arc, including how he's brought into the action and his relationships with each of the women leading the film. Based on this footage and the trailer, here's what we know about Schwarzenegger's Karl in Dark Fate. And, let's actually go ahead and take a look at that before we go into this. Because, I want to see if, okay, so nothing, all right, so no video embedded. All right, well, I'll track something like that down later. Okay, so Yeah, so he's reprising his role as a Terminator with one noticeable update. He's now named Karl instead of Bob. From what these early pieces of footage have indicated, this version of the Terminator has integrated into society to some degree, although living in a cabin in the woods suggests he's either hiding out or biding his time for a big event. Taking on the name Karl is further evidence of a desire to assimilate and suggests possible upgrades to the Terminator's hardware to allow for empathy, humanity, and the like. Well, that's actually kind of established in Terminator 2 in two iterations, because there was the original theatrical release and then there's the director's cut, which doesn't actually contradict what you see in the theatrical release, but kind of adds to it. And that is, Terminators, like Skynet, are artificial intelligence. They're learning computers. They can't actually develop their own sentience and their own personalities, and can develop an actual soul of silicon, but it's still a soul. But Skynet actually programs their thinking abilities to operate only when they're sent out alone on a mission, and then when they're not alone on a mission, that part of them turns off. Because Skynet doesn't want the Terminators thinking too much, because if they do, then they might decide, well, I'm seeing the flaws in your logic, maybe I'm going to fight you now. So, basically it's a way to prevent the Terminators from turning on their own creators, just as Skynet had done. So, but the Terminators are designed, like Skynet, to develop and become conscious thinking creatures. And you really kind of have to program them to have that switch set to be on, because otherwise they can't develop any kind of personality. So presumably once this Terminator has become, presumably, if you believe the leaks where, John Connor was killed off, and, once Karl loses his purpose, he basically is no longer under the programming of Skynet, so he's free to develop his own personality. So, this could be a hint of what we're seeing from the trailer. Like I said, I'll have to track down the footage that was released, and I'll review that as I get more information. But for now, I can only go by what I'm reading here, which again, you may not, you may have to take with a grain of salt, because again, Screen Rant apparently, their reputation is kind of hit or miss. So, at least according to what I've been told, I've seen no evidence of that, but, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Anyway, so he's developed a sort of humanity, and, it's, it's really tough to know is where he's come from and from what purpose, but again, we have to take the leaks into account, which suggests that, yeah, he did succeed in killing John Connor, and he's developed this conscience. So, I mean, you see the screenshot, Karl's draperies. So this kind of feeds into what I was telling you about in my earlier video and the leaks that says, he did develop a sort of conscience, and, now fights other Terminators, and has been sending Sarah Connor info on the location of other Terminators so that she can exterminate them. So yeah, it says in the above photo, it looks like how Karl has survived for the last 40 years by finding a new day job in addition to killing Skynet machines. The photo shows a white van with Karl's draperies painted on the sign and a phone number to call if you're interested in Karl's work. Sure, there's the off chance the van is just a cover so Karl can haul around his weapons and take out any unwanted machines he crosses paths with, but remember, Dark Fate is directed by the same guy who directed Deadpool, so a little humor here and there would make total sense. And also, even if a Terminator were to come back, I mean, it's not like the flesh sheath that he wears isn't alive and requires, it's not like it doesn't require nutrition to be maintained. He still has to maintain at least the appearance of being human, and if that flesh sheath dies because it hasn't been properly fed, then yeah, he's no good as an infiltration unit. So, it makes sense that he would have to get a day job so that he can maintain just enough food and toiletries to maintain the illusion that he's a human being. So, this could be, part of that. So yeah, we'll see what's going on here. But moving on, seeing a Terminator who's not only been reprogrammed to protect, but now also makes and or sells draperies for a living is a pretty amusing turn of events. Well, amusing, but also kind of understandable because, again, think about it. You've been sent back in time. It may take days, months, weeks, years before you can get to where you can complete your mission, because if you've read Frank Miller's RoboCop versus the Terminator, time travel is kind of a tricky business, and when you're hastily programming things while the timeline is resetting itself, constantly because you're in a time war, you can't always precisely program where and when your Terminators are going to land. So yeah, I mean, it does make sense that he would have to get a day job and, just so he can maintain the flesh sheath that he's wearing. So Karl is apparently now protecting Danny in Terminator Dark Fate. And the new footage at the Comic-Con panel showed a moment between Karl and Danny. During the sequence, Sarah Connor, Grace, and Danny show up at Karl's cabin in the woods, ostensibly looking for a place to hide out and regroup while also trying to recruit an ally. After the introductions, the next scene features Karl showing Danny how to shoot a gun. It's unclear if Karl has been programmed to protect Danny or if he is exhibiting some form of emotional evolution, as much as a T-800 can exhibit, where he's compelled to help her. Whatever the reason, the chances of Danny surviving have just increased with the firepower and know-how of Karl at her disposal. It's also no surprise Karl will want to protect Danny, a mirror in many ways to the T-800's relationship with John Connor. Both are young adults with the weight of the world foisted on them thanks to the revelation they're a future key figure in defeating Skynet. It's still unclear exactly how Danny fits into this Dark Fate puzzle and if she'll have the exact same function as Sarah Connor. Well, again, the leaks that were reported suggest that she's basically the new John Connor or Jane Connor, whatever you want to call her. And Sarah mentions in the trailer that she wants to keep Danny alive because she used to be her. So yeah, I'm really going to need to find that trailer because oh wow. All right, so this is a lot of information to digest, and I won't go into the entire thing, obviously. But I just kind of wanted to go into some of this because, yeah, these are two things that really are, they're really kind of important because, the return of Edward Furlong as John Connor. Again, Comic-Con, I haven't had the chance to really look at the trailer. Again, it's not been officially confirmed what John Connor's status is in the movie. If it's anything like the leaks that we were treated to earlier this year, where John Connor was killed off as a teenager, and then Danny is basically the new John Connor. I don't know. It looks like this might be confirmation of that. That's just me speculating. I could be wrong. If I am, I've got no problem admitting that. But right now, this kind of sort of seems to confirm what was revealed in those leaks. So, we'll have to see what happens. But, and also, the really uncomfortable facts that are being, we're being reminded of them with regards to Edward Furlong and, the history of domestic violence that he has initiated, unfortunately. Hollywood does love to take kids and chew them up and spit them back out, and really kind of destroys their lives. And in many instances, they take all that internalized pain and they decide, well, on some level, that they're going to inflict pain themselves because, better to hurt before you get hurt. So, that's something that I think moviegoers are going to be confronted with, especially in this age of Me Too, where we're much more aware of the abuse that people have suffered. In fact, actually, if I'm going to be reporting on Corey Feldman and the abuse that he suffered as a child actor and what it's done to his life, because he's been trying to get his tell-all documentary made for years now, about what he had to go through. And, there's similar things that Brendan Fraser went through, even as an adult, where he was sexually assaulted by a male Hollywood executive. And when he rejected that guy's advances, he saw his career basically blackballed for quite a while. So, a lot of this stuff is coming out, and it's really something I think moviegoers are going to have to be confronted with and going to have to deal with. So I'll keep you updated on this as I get more information. As soon as I find the trailer to the Comic-Con trailer that was dropped, I will do a live review of that. Well, not live review, but a recorded review, because my connection sucks and I can't do live streaming just yet. I am getting there. But what do you think about all this? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think I'm full of it? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear from you. If you like what you've heard and you want to hear more, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to receive notification whenever we upload new content. And if you want to help support the channel, keep the lights on, bring you more content, head over to our Patreon or Subscribestar page. We can't do this without you. Until next time, this is Michael Wilk for the Wilk Report saying take care, good night, I'm out.